Today, you're in for a treat. We are strapping in with Shelley Klingerman. She's the badass behind Vigilance, a book that is shaking up how women see safety. Picture this. You're strolling through life, phone in hand, earbuds in your ears, totally oblivious that a predator is sizing you up. Shelley's here to say, no, not on my watch. She's a mom, a pro, a safety ninja who has teamed up with cops, military pros, and even stared down her own close calls to bring you street smart tricks that don't need a black belt. Just guts. We're about to go on a wild ride from oh crap moments to I've got this victories. So buckle up because Shelley's dropping some truth bombs that just might go viral. Hi, Shelley. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, after we had our very first initial phone call, I said, this is like serendipitous. You're going to be here in Dallas where our studio is here. Like, let's get you in. And I just want to start this off with a jolt. All right, let's just get this started here. I want to know from you, like, paint a picture for me, that moment that you realized, holy cow, I am not as safe as I thought I was. Like, what was that moment for you that actually got you starting to think about all this?
Well, I will be honest. It was really after I left a career and started reflecting back on some moments. In the moment, I did know, like, this is not right. I really didn't know what was going on. So that one of those moments that I share is I was working for a Fortune 100 company and I was just starting to travel by myself. I was 23 years old, had stepped into a role and quickly got put into another role, which required me to travel by myself. I was brought up to be nice, Midwest nice to be clear, and really had been somewhat, I would say, sheltered my whole life. And when I got thrown on my first business trip, it really brought to light how much I really didn't know and how green I was. So one of these trips, I go to New York City by myself for the first time. I come out, it's before smartphones, it's in the 90s, so I'll just age myself. But I walk out and, I see this taxi line, and the taxi line is a good 45 minutes to an hour long. And, you just sit there and kind of sigh and you're looking back and forth. And so I go to the back of the line and I'm there for, a minute or so, just getting settled in. And here comes a gentleman with like the black hat on, and it's the car services. And so he's, asking, they fish for those rides in the back of the line. So he's asking, does anyone run a ride? And then he's saying, it's the same fee. You can leave now. And I'm like, well, that sounds much more inviting than standing here for an hour. So he grabs my suitcase and starts walking, and I just start to follow. And we walk and we're walking, and then we're starting to like get to the end of the terminal where we're leaving the terminal. And that's the moment I'm like, okay, this is odd. And my gut was going off. The hair on my arms was standing up, but I just kept following him. And then we leave the terminal area and we're walking out into a parking lot that's just a sea of black cars. And now I'm really like nervous, like I made a bad decision. But what I didn't have was the confidence or really even the thought to make up a lie, to say, hey, I think I forgot something, or I forgot something at the terminal. I need to go back. I couldn't turn around because he had my bag. So in that moment, we just kept walking, and I knew that something was like not settling with me. I didn't know what it was, and I really just didn't know what to do in the moment. So, I end up getting in the car. I'm thinking, who's in this car? I have no idea, who might be waiting. Nobody knew that I left. Like it, again, was before technology. So nobody knows that I've gone with this person. I could have been plucked off the face of the earth.
Sure.
But I should have never gotten in the car. Had I known now, or then what I know now is you just stand there. That's where these car services and where some of these unregulated individuals will fish. They fish from the back of the line because they know that you are going to be more motivated, so you don't have to stand in line. And that's just one of those instances where I should have acted and I should have done something. I just really didn't know what to do. Nobody talked to me about it. And I was much more worried about a complete stranger's feelings than my own safety.
Do you find a lot of women find themselves in that position?
Absolutely. When I do talks, I find a lot of women will leave themselves in very uncomfortable situations to spare a stranger's feelings.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so for a lot of you that are watching, that are just tuning into this show, personal safety empowerment for women is something that has been a big passion of mine for a very long time. I've had my oh crap moment is what I like to call it, like you, and it woke me up from this reactive state,
Right.
because I never thought about my personal safety until it was almost too late. And I tell people that my story ended there. I was followed and harassed by like 7 guys, but my story ended there. A lot of women's story does not end there. So how did you want to help women move from a reactive state of mind to a proactive state of mind?
So I was in that role for 18 years. And by the time I left, I had my own kids. And I was really just wanting to make sure they were more prepared to be out on their own in their professional careers than I was. So that's the moment that I stopped and I just started reflecting back. And then I started working with some subject matter experts in law enforcement and military, and just learning some of the trade craft and the things that could translate. Some of the stuff didn't, but much of it did. And I just started doing a lot of research and interviews and started pulling like the best practices and things that would translate. It's mainly for women, but it certainly applies to men. But there's lots of situations, again, when we're talking in workshops and sessions where you tell a story and the men in the room really, it doesn't resonate with them because it's nothing they ever had to think about. Like many men don't have to think about when they're on a business trip, where they're going to go eat. You travel with a male counterpart and you have your meetings and you leave for the night and you come back the next day and, you're like talking and they're like, oh, I had the best steak and cigar and martini last night. And it was, the best I had. And well, what'd you do? And the female will often say, I ordered room service. It's because we're not always comfortable going out. And they're just sometimes don't understand that.
Absolutely. I had a guy, an author, want to do an article on my company, Alexo Athletica, for Rolling Stone. It ended up not going in Rolling Stone, but being in the Washington Post magazine. And he was like, what drew me to your story is the fact that you allow women to carry guns in your clothing while they're running. He's like, that is a thought that has literally never crossed my mind, not once. I have never felt unsafe on a run. He said, I had to ask my girlfriend, who is about 5'1", if this was something that she experienced. When I found out about, your company, she said, I think about it every time I leave my house. And he was mind blown because it's not something, harassing, catcalling, being followed is not something that men typically think of. So it really blew his mind that this many women, I said, yes, 80% of women have felt unsafe while they're exercising. That's a very large stat. So we definitely think about this differently. From your perspective, what is the sneakiest danger that we're all ignoring as women right now, especially as we're scrolling our phones like zombies?
I think that's absolutely it. The sneakiest danger is not lifting your head occasionally to look up and just note what's going on around you. Just noticing, if you can notice earlier, it gives you more time, which gives you more options. And I think we are all just so guilty of being head down all the time that is the sneakiest thing. Is predators like the element of surprise. They use that to their advantage. So when you have no idea what's going on around you, that's a much bigger advantage for them. So
paint a picture for what you were like when you were writing this book. Were you a self-defense expert? Were you a gun enthusiast? Were you carrying self-defense tools on your body at all time? What was your life like at that point?
When I wrote it and I was a mom. And again, I wanted to prepare my girls to be more ready and not as vulnerable, really. I was green. I was naive. I was overly nice. I didn't know a stranger because that's how I was brought up. Again, on top of women being hardwired to be nice, to not offend, to not humiliate, embarrass, I was also from the Midwest. So we're just really nice to everybody. And there are a number of occasions where I look back and I have one instance when I was on a plane. In the role I was in at the time, I was managing events for our company, and it was a big customer event, and it was the first NASCAR race in Vegas. And I'm sitting by myself. I'm meeting people in Vegas, but I'm flying by myself. And I have all of the suite passes on my person. And there was 2 or 3 guys sitting next to me on the flight out. And we just started talking, and they knew what I was going out for. They knew what I was doing out there. But somewhere in the conversation, I had given a lot of information about what I was doing out there, where I was staying.
You're by yourself.
That I was, by myself. And they realized I had the passes on me because I told them. And they started towards the end of the flight, almost getting harassing, like, come on, just give us one, give us a sweet pass and, let us come. And they even were texting me because I'd given them my card, because I just make friends with everybody and exchange information. Well, then they had my phone number. So I'm on the ground in Vegas and they are texting me, can you get us in, whatever. And so it was just, I shouldn't have handed that over in the first place. So when I wrote the book, I was writing all the things the cringy situations that I had found myself in and really trying to we don't need permission, but sometimes you feel like you kind of do. Yep. It is okay not to be nice all the time.
I'm so glad you said that because I took a course with a group of Navy SEALs and it was just me and some of my ambassadors. And when they were trying to get us to do these, I would say pretty aggressive moves, this was like a fast track self-defense course. And we were all like, barely hitting, barely pushing these like big Navy SEAL dudes. And the guy stopped the course and he said, all right, ladies, I give you permission to be violent. And it was the first time that I'd ever heard someone feel like they needed to give me permission. But there was something psychologically inside me that was like, oh, great. So then I can just, unleash on this person. Wonderful. But it's so true. So ladies, you have permission, not just to be violent in a situation, but to be weird. One of my favorite podcasts is Crime Junkies.
Yes.
And I love how they say it's okay to be weird.
Yes. And be gross if you need to. Like whatever it takes to get someone kind of off your back.
Yeah.
And off your scent, do it. But you have to kind of think about that stuff before the moment. And the time of the crisis is not the first time you should think about what you should do. So, one of the things we talk about, in the workshops and in the keynote is take headlines that you see from news stories or articles or books that have been written and run those. We were talking before the show, like you have to kind of play those through in your head and visualize and see yourself in that situation. And then what are you doing to get out of it?
Yeah.
And
do you carry a self-defense tool personally?
Not all the time. I do in certain situations.
Yeah. What do you carry?
I'll carry pepper spray. It depends if I'm going to be by myself sometimes, like I don't know what you call the word. It's got the pointy end on it. Just depends on what you have on. And to your point, how you can conceal it and, it's not in the way. Yeah. I used to carry a gun. When I traveled, I would leave it under my seat because I would go on trips and then, they'd get delayed. And so I'm driving back. I have an hour drive on the highway from our airport to home. And so I just left it under there. And at the time I was taking regular lessons. I was very comfortable with it. I also took jujitsu. And I will say a lot of that is just mindset too. When you're doing those things, your mindset is stronger. You have that warrior mindset. And so keeping up on those things is really important. Yeah. Because we can talk about, we were talking about, I have tips that I give. We can give tips, but really what you want to train is a warrior mindset because you can't give a panacea answer to what you can do in every single situation. Right. But you can think yourself out of that and you can learn to stay calm and do your box breathing and just stay in the moment so you can think your way out. Because in crisis, that's who we tend to follow too.
I love that. I felt when I started carrying that the tool, whether it was pepper spray, whether it was, a firearm, whatever it was at that, wherever I was at the moment, and whatever the situation warranted, but it gave me the confidence to say no because you could actually back up that no if somebody were to continue proceeding. Like if you've got someone that's approaching you in a parking lot and you say, whoa, stop, back up. You have the confidence to do that when you have a tool that can actually help you get out of that situation. But 100%. I feel like a lot of women shrink and get quiet or start to play the nice, polite game because, well, what are they going to do if this guy continues aggressing, like moving forward and being the aggressor? What are they going to do? They can't outrun them. They can't fight them off. I mean, the guy's bigger, stronger, faster. So what are you going to do? So I always am a big proponent for women like having multiple tools in their toolbox, but getting trained on them just as that extra level of confidence, because like you said, they're looking for weak people to prey on. And if you can just project yourself, and what gives you the confidence to project yourself big? Having a way to back it up.
Well, and I think too, just to play on that is think of everyday items. Like our phones are in our hand all the time.
Yeah.
So, you can take that phone and use it as a flat, hard surface to shove in somebody's face. You've got, for a while we were all carrying hand sanitizer. You could shoot that in someone's eyes. But to your point, I think you're exactly right. Those give us the confidence. And then that body projection alone is sometimes all it takes just to get them. Predators they want the easy target. They don't want to fight. So there are certain things you can do to just get them. I call them bumps, whatever you want to call them, but bump them away from you. And sometimes being in that aggressor first is what will do that. So to your point, if they're coming at you aggressively and we kind of cower down, standing up, getting your shoulders back, getting your hands, using your hands. And then we also talk about congruence, because I've worked with groups that I always suggest find a phrase that are your words that are natural to you, and then practice that with the tone and the hand gestures, because all of that needs to be in congruence. You can't say, get away from me. Right. Or, you
take the please out of your voice.
Exactly. So you got to kind of put it all together with the hand gestures, the tone, and the words, and practice it. Practice it in the car. Practice it at stoplights.
Practice it in the mirror.
Practice it in the mirror.
Yeah, I tell young girls that all the time. I said, you stand in front of that mirror and you say no until you get the maybe or the please out of your voice.
Yes, I like take the please out. Absolutely.
Like it makes all the difference in the world. So your book is getting praise from cops. So spill the tea for us and let us know what's one trick that a cop might have taught you that you woke up and said, why doesn't every woman know this?
Okay, there's a couple that I was like, that's brilliant. One is using, like, if you're walking down the street, use the windows as mirrors to just kind of glance. Again, we as women, if we feel someone behind us, we're worried about their feelings. And so we just keep walking and we let like the hair on our neck kind of raise instead of just turning around to see what's going on. We don't. So, some things you can do in that moment is stop and take a picture. Like, it is so common to take pictures, like selfies. So act like you're taking a picture, turn the camera around, and so you can see behind you. Then you don't have to turn around if you're not comfortable doing so. A lot of times your phone, the surface of your phone is pretty reflective. So you can see, so you could just kind of look behind you. Yeah. You can use windows or mirrors to glance and see if someone's behind you. If you feel you're being followed, you can just turn around and quickly go the other way. So if they don't follow you, great. If they do, maybe there's something going on. Yeah. And then I always say, you might not like the situation you're in, but it is the situation you're in. And that's when you need to start doing your breathing, staying calm, and think, okay, what are my options? Yep. Going and ducking into a store. If you see a friendly person, but you need to start thinking. Again, it's not, nobody wants to be in that situation, but when you are, and you got to act.
So question, can just acting like a badass actually stop a creep in his tracks?
I don't know if there is a yes, no, but I think it's definitely worth trying. And again, they are looking for easy. They don't want to put up, they don't want to fight. So yeah, I think just acting like a badass. It's funny because when I was working, when sometimes my boss would introduce me, because it is when I was doing jujitsu, and it's before I had kids, but I was doing jujitsu and I was doing shooting lessons, and just people knew that. And it was very interesting the way that when they introduced me, it would be like, hey, this is Shelly. She does jujitsu and, she carries a gun. So don't mess with her. and that would almost set the tone of the relationship that I was being introduced to. Yeah. So I think, all of that absolutely plays into what you're giving off, your aura and your body projection.
So you are a mom. Have you made this book a reading requirement for your girls?
Yep.
Okay. And how do you recommend, like, if you're going to get this in the hand of a mom, how are you explaining this book to them that is an intriguing way that could get their kids to want to read something like this?
Well, my kids were almost like brought up with it. So, I mean, I just was always reinforcing and reminding. And my daughter, who is now out of college, but she studied abroad. She was in Rome for a semester. And I ended up having her write a blog because she was calling back and telling kind of what I refer to them as cringy kind of just situations.
Yeah.
And she was sharing some of these with me and how she was addressing them and how she was kind of mitigating. And I truly believe it's because it's just the way we talked about it. And nothing was intense. It was, I think we had talked earlier too, like we play the what if and that you gamify it when they're growing up so that it's age appropriate. But you know, when she was traveling, there were many of her friends, they were in two categories almost. And I like to think she was in the middle, which I would like for all, you know, young women to be in the middle. There were those who did not get to take advantage of being abroad and the ease of getting to different countries because they were really scared. And then there were the others who were not paying any attention to the fact that they were in a different country and a different culture. And they were a little more free flying, if you will. And my daughter's name is Quinn. She would do things like if she were going to go meet friends in another country, you know, the trains are how they typically get around. And so she would book her train to go, you know, earlier when it's light though, and then come back earlier so that when they're coming in from the train station and they walked everywhere, that she's not walking back in the dark. Where, you know, this group that was a little more free handling would book the last train out. So when they get back into the station, it's dark when they're when they're walking back.
Oh, that's
but
terrifying.
then there's just others who just didn't go anywhere, which that's also not a great, you know, you should have that freedom, but the freedom comes from confidence. And so knowing all of these things, like you were saying before, just knowing they're in your back pocket gives you that confidence and then you can go explore. And so I've never been a proponent of scaring people. It's much more empowering and arming them with all these things that they're in your control. And at the end of the day, again, you're just trying to stay off of a predator's radar. And there's all of these things you can do that just put off a sign, a signal, a vibe that like, okay, nobody's going to mess with you.
Well,
They're gonna look.
And I feel like people need to also teach classes on how not to stick out like a sore thumb and not bring attention to yourself when you're traveling abroad. I mean, there's many countries that people can automatically tell when you're an American. They already assume, you know, you probably have jewelry, money, all these things on you, which may or may not be the actual case, but people don't even think about simple things like just, you know, blend in.
Or logoed stuff. You know, even if you're traveling for your company, you know, when you work for a company, you have everything that's got the name on it and you wear it and carry it without much
thinking
thought.
about it.
But you know, those are signs of money. Like those companies are signs of money in some foreign countries. So just don't wear them at all. But you have to kind of pay attention and be conscious of that. And you know,
but if you never get outside of your country, you would never know that. I mean, that is the benefit of traveling. Because the beauty of traveling, you start to learn these things. You just hope they've got someone that's sharing this
and
information with them. Do you touch on that in your book? Do you touch on traveling?
Yeah, we do. And you know, the State Department website, like you don't have to go in and do a lot of deep dive research. You can go to the State Department website and it will show you kind of like the threat level in all the countries. But and again, just realizing like we aren't always loved in every country. Like, you know, we love ourselves. So, you know, just paying attention and being respectful of where you're going. And you talk about blending in, like it's always best to be gray, even so much as, you know, if you're in a culture that walks slower and you naturally walk fast, be conscious of slowing down your pace. So you're not standing out and vice versa. If you
are being loud.
Or being loud or wearing, you know, your logoed American, you know, logoed items. So there's nothing that's
Leave
really,
your American flag shirts and MAGA hats at home. Is that what you're? Is that?
that's a choice.
It could draw some unwanted. It could draw unwanted attention in America, here
Yeah,
too.
true.
So I want to shift gears a little bit because you are an author, but you're also a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and you have a really neat foundation that we've talked a little bit about. But I want you to tell us the story. Tell us about the foundation and really what it was that happened in your life that drove you to want to start that.
Yeah. So the foundation is called Project Never Broken, and it is to honor and memorialize my brother, Greg Ferenczi, who is a 30-year detective and FBI task force officer. And on July 7th of 2021, he was leaving his federal office building, just walked outside and was ambushed and murdered by someone who just hated the federal government and wanted to get back. Who knows what his motive was, but it was not a targeted attack. It was just, quite frankly, evil and senseless. And I started the foundation to honor and memorialize his life and legacy because he was one of the good ones. He loved the job. He, threw his entire kind of life into it. And he was also an author. He was undercover early on in his career. So he wrote a book called Narc Ops, and it was kind of all the things that undercover, cops do. And when he'd come in from surveillances, I think he would get in late at night and he would just kind of document what he did. And it's really actually quite interesting, some of the tactics they use. But yeah, it was really just to make something good for the profession that he so loved and was passionate about come out of this evil and senseless act. It's really, honestly, like a middle finger to the evil that showed up that day.
Honestly, I think that story too plays so well into what you're doing now, because a lot of people, and maybe you see this when you're going to these seminars and you're speaking, do you feel like a lot of people almost live in a bubble where they've never experienced senseless evil, so they walk around thinking everything is safe, which actually makes them lower their situational awareness a little bit?
No, absolutely. I see that. And the book was written before this accident. So Greg served as almost the editor of the book to make sure that everything, that was written was true and accurate. And he was very, much aware of this stuff. So there was just no way he was at an absolute disadvantage. He was absolutely ambushed, because if it were a fair fight, and that wasn't such a cowardice act, I'm quite sure that the ending would have been different. But that's how these people operate, is they have to play dirty. And
they're out there. This is not a one-off. I mean, a lot of the acts that we see are not premeditated. It's just they picked the person that was wrong place at the wrong time. And I think we can do as much as you can to prevent it, but we have to also come to the realization that there's evil people out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the world.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's been just experiential for me is just, how do you get past it? And everyone grieves differently. But part of my grieving has been this foundation. I was swinging really far to deep sadness, to just pure anger of what it was doing to my family. And my grieving process was do something actionable, because I quickly realized that when I was in the sad and the angry, it was going to be productive or destructive if I didn't control it. And it would naturally be destructive, but I was trying to find something that, I could take all that energy. Anger is a really energy producing emotion. And that's when the kind of that destruction happens, where you can kind of spiral. I was really intentional about taking that energy and putting it towards something that could make a positive difference. And that's how,
What is the foundation actually helping and doing now?
So we do, the mission is to boldly support law enforcement through hope, help, and healing while honoring the resiliency of humanity. So the boldly was very important at the time, because again, it was in 21 when everyone was kind of pulling in because they didn't want to be attacked for their own, their beliefs. So it was something to come forward and say, we are boldly supporting our law enforcement. The Hope, Help, and Healing. My community has had 3 officers die in the line of duty in the last 10 years. So it was just another blow. The statistic, our community is smaller. So statistically, we lost officers at a greater rate than, many big cities.
And is this a particularly higher violent crime area?
Not really. No, it wasn't. And that's what makes it hard is we're actually a pretty law enforcement supportive city. It's just the officers that are serving, still some of them now have lost 3 of their brothers in the last 10 years. I know what the loss of one has done to me. I can't imagine what it's done to them. And so this foundation is really to bring resources to help them in whatever way is best helpful. We're working on doing a pretty big vision of doing a healing cruise where it would be more of a leadership cruise. But from what I'm learning just by doing the work, a lot of these, first responders don't like to ask for help within their community and for really valid reasons. So the idea of the cruise would be able to get them, away from everyone. It would be all first responders. They're all there for the same reason. They all can share stories and relate to one another. But it gets them kind of away from, their own community. Plus they can take their spouses. So that's something we're working on. Within the next year, we hope to have that put together.
That's beautiful. And we know that it's so needed. So Shelley, thank you for joining us today. Before we go, I want you to tell everybody where can they grab a copy of your book and where can they jump in and find out more about the foundation if they want to help support that as well.
Right. So the company is called StilettoAgency.com and I do workshops and keynotes on this topic, on the situational awareness. You can get the book on Amazon, or if you just get a hold of me, I'll get you one. And then the foundation is projectneverbroken.org.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have are you on social media?
I am.
Okay, I know we connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, side note, that's a great thing.
Yes.
People love to talk about how horrible social media is. I have met some of the most incredible people, including yourself, through social media. And so, if you want to give, where people can find you as well.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm that old. And the foundation is on Facebook.
Okay.
And you can get to any of it, just Shelley at stilettoagency.com or Shelley at projectneverbroken.org.
All right. Wonderful. Well, Shelley, thank you so much
for
sharing your tips,
me.
Your tricks, and just all the wonderful work that you're doing. You guys tune in for the full episode with Shelley Klingerman. We're going to drop everything in the show notes below. And thank you for tuning in.